Greetings, STEM learners. Welcome back. Our topic for today's video is to be multiplying binomials, and we just learned a little bit about what a binomial is. And so I'm going to start with an example of it wouldn't even be a binomial, but I want you to kind of see the pattern of what we're going to do today. But I want to, again, also record what our goal is. So let's just write down a goal statement. If you didn't put the heading down, go ahead and pause the video and add that heading to your notes. I'm going to expect that you take some notes with this today, and I will ask to see those when you get done. Okay, it's not a lot to write down, but I just want to do a couple examples with you. All right, so the goal is going to be to multiply binomials using what we're going to call the double distributive property. Okay. So what does that look like? Well, let's just do a quick example with just the simple distributive property you learned earlier in the year. So for example, let's say we're going to take 3 and distribute it to x minus 4. All right, well, the way we're set up right now, 3 is considered a monomial. Okay, and then x minus 4, what's in the parentheses, is a binomial. So multiplying a monomial by a binomial is really just the distributive property. So we're going to take 3 times x and get 3x. And then we're going to take 3 times negative 4 and we're going to get negative 12. All right, so that should be kind of old news. What we're going to do today is how do we multiply. So I'm going to call this example, we'll call this example 1. All right, example 2 is really going to take a binomial times a binomial, and that's what we're going to learn how to do. So down below, let's just go ahead. With the binomials that are multiplied, you want to put them in parentheses if they're not already that way. So we're going to take let's do 3x plus 4. And let's take that and multiply it by 2x minus 6. All right, so how do we do that? Well, it's actually not as hard as it looks, okay? What I'm going to have you do is focus on, and I'm going to use a highlighter for this, so bear with me as I change markers. I'm going to have you focus on this first part of the binomial, all right? And then I'm going to ask you to ignore the plus 4 here, the second term in that binomial. So I'm going to take a rectangle and we're going to make sure it's filled in. All right. And I'm going to give it a line color. So I'm just going to literally cover this up. You don't have to do that on your paper, but if you want to just with your finger cover it up, that might be a good approach. Okay. We're going to take this 3x and multiply it to each of the numbers in the second parenthesis. So I'm just going to draw an arrow as we do that. Okay, so 3x times 2x. Well, let's do the numbers first. 3 times 2 gives me 6. Okay, x times x is not x, it's x squared. All right, and then we're going to take this 3x and distribute it just like we did up above to the second number. So 3x times negative 6, make sure you include that sign, would be a negative 18x. Okay, well, now that we distributed the 3x, that basically we're just going to switch jobs. The 3x is done. Now I'm going to take, this is why we call it the double distributive property. We're going to take the second number here, this 4, and we're going to distribute that to the second parentheses. So we're going to get this 4 and multiply it through everything on the right. 4 times 2x is 8x. And 4 times negative 6 would be a negative 24. And what we're going to notice is this is going to start to look like some of the things we've been graphing in algebra. I do want you to pay close attention to these middle two terms. And what we notice here is that these are considered like terms. They're like terms because they both have the same power of x. So we're going to combine those, okay? Starting from left to right, I'm going to copy my 6x squared. And then a negative 18 plus 8, that's going to combine to be a negative 10x minus 24. Okay, so why would we want to do that? Well, a lot of times with these quadratics, depending on what form it's in, we'll learn a little bit more about this later in this chapter and in the next chapter. But when it's in this form that I just circled, we can do things like find the vertex. We can do things like know the y-intercept. When it's in the form you see up above, you're going to learn a little bit more about this later, but that will help you figure out the zeros of the graph. Okay, so there's a lot of different ways to represent these expressions, and depending upon how you do that, it tells you different information about the polynomial. All right, what I'm going to have you do at this point is go ahead and I'm going to put a third example in here. I want you to try the third one, and then when you're done, I want you to raise your hand and check your work with the teacher. If it's right, you can go ahead and start working on the assignment. If it's not right, we'll get you some feedback to get you on your way and help you out with learning the process a bit better. So thanks for watching. Give this one a try. Raise your hand when you're done, and then you can start the algebra assignment until we transition.